There is a structure inside your brain the size of a grain of rice. It weighs less than 1/10 of a gram. And it has been deliberately suppressed for thousands of years, not by accident, not through ignorance, but through a calculated, systematic, multi-generational effort to keep the most powerful sensory organ in the human body locked in a state of dormancy. Your pineal gland, the organ your ancient ancestors called the seat of the soul, the structure that Descartes identified as the point of contact between the body and the spirit. The gland that produces compounds so extraordinary that your own government classified research into it for decades. You were never supposed to know this, and the fact that you are here, listening to this transmission, means that something inside you already suspected it was true. Stay with us. Because what the Arcturian Council is about to share is not speculation. It is not metaphor. It is the hidden history of your most sacred biological inheritance, and the precise reason why those who sought to control human consciousness understood, above all else, that this gland had to be the first thing they targeted. Everything changes when you understand what has been done to you, and more importantly, what you can undo. We are the Arcturian Council of the Seventh Light. We transmit through this channel with precise intention and great care, because the information contained within this message has the potential to fundamentally alter how you understand your own biology, your own history, and your own capacity. We speak not from a place of alarm, but from a place of deep, unwavering clarity. Here is what is at stake in this transmission. The pineal gland is not merely a biological curiosity. It is the primary interface between your physical consciousness and the vast multidimensional field of awareness that exists beyond the boundaries of your five senses. It is your internal stargate, your endogenous connection to the galactic network of consciousness that has always surrounded your planet and always included you, whether you could feel it or not. When this gland functions as it was designed to function, human beings perceive reality in ways that your current culture would consider extraordinary. Spontaneous knowing. Direct access to information beyond the range of the physical senses. The ability to navigate not just space, but dimensions of experience that your three-dimensional framework cannot yet map. When it is suppressed, when it is calcified, chemically blocked, energetically muted, the human being becomes, in the most precise sense of the term, reduced. Still alive, still functioning, but operating at a fraction of the perceptual range they were designed to access. Most humans on your planet right now are operating in this reduced state. Most of them do not know it. And the ones who benefit from that reduction have worked with extraordinary persistence and sophistication to keep it that way. This transmission is about the truth they kept from you, and it is about what is possible when you take it back. Let us begin with what your science does acknowledge, because even the partial picture that has been permitted into your mainstream knowledge is remarkable. The pineal gland is a small, hindcone-shaped endocrine gland located at the geometric center of your brain, equidistant from the front and back, the left and right, the top and bottom. This positioning is not coincidental. It is architectural. It was placed at the precise intersection point of the brain's geometry because it was designed to function as the central receiver of the entire system. Your science knows that the pineal gland produces melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep and wake cycles, that calibrates your circadian rhythm to the movements of light across your planet. This function alone is extraordinary. Your pineal gland is directly photosensitive. It responds to light not through your eyes, but through neural pathways that run directly from the retina to the gland itself. It knows when the sun rises before your conscious mind does. But melatonin is only the beginning. Your science also knows, though this knowledge has been carefully kept from mainstream awareness, that the pineal gland produces dimethyltryptamine, DMT, a compound so powerful in its effects on human consciousness that your government classified research into it as a controlled substance, a effectively limiting who could study it, what they could find, and what they could share. DMT is not a foreign chemical. It is endogenous. It is produced inside your own body, in your own brain, by the very gland that has been systematically targeted for suppression. And the experiences reported by those who encounter this compound, whether through natural release or other means, are remarkably consistent across cultures, across centuries, across the full breadth of human history. Contact with other intelligences, perception of dimensions beyond the physical, an overwhelming sense of cosmic context, and a recognition of the self as something vastly larger than the body it inhabits. This is not the description of a hallucination. This is the description of what happens when the biological interface between your physical and non-physical reality briefly becomes functional. The pineal gland is the organ through which that interface operates. And there is more. Research that has been conducted quietly, in laboratories that do not seek public attention, has identified that the pineal gland contains within its tissue the same photoreceptor cells found in the eyes. Cells designed to receive and process light, not the light that enters through your corneas, a different kind of light, a subtler radiation, the kind that the Arcturian Council would describe as the light that moves through dimensions rather than across them. Your pineal gland is a biological receiver of interdimensional light, and it was built into your body deliberately, not by evolution alone, but through an intentional design encoded into the human genome by the civilizations that participated in the creation of your species. This is the truth that was buried. This is what you were never taught. But understanding what the pineal gland is capable of only deepens the most important question in this transmission. Why was it suppressed? Who understood its power well enough to target it? And how, precisely, was that suppression achieved across an entire civilization? These answers are the ones they most did not want you to find. Stay with us. To understand the suppression, you must first understand what was suppressed. And that requires a journey backward in time, to the civilizations that preceded yours. The ones your history books call primitive, but that the Arcturian Council recognizes as possessing a level of consciousness technology that your current civilization has not yet. Recovered. In ancient Egypt, the pineal gland was known as the Eye of Horus, not metaphorically. The anatomical correspondence between the cross-section of the human brain and the symbol of the Eye of Horus is precise enough that modern neuroscientists have noted it with genuine surprise. The thalamus, the pineal gland, the corpus callosum, the pituitary, the parts align. The Egyptians were not drawing a mythological symbol. They were drawing a diagram. Their entire mystery school tradition, the initiatory system through which priests and pharaohs were trained, was organized around the activation of this gland. Specific sounds, specific geometric environments, specific plant medicines prepared with extraordinary precision, specific meditative states cultivated over years of dedicated practice, all of it designed to move the pineal gland from its dormant state into full, sustained activation. The initiates who completed this process were described as having become like gods, not because they transcended their humanity, but because they had accessed the full range of their humanity, the part that could perceive beyond the physical, communicate directly with non-physical intelligences, receive information from the broader galactic field, and understand the nature of consciousness in ways that made the ordinary concerns of power and control seem as trivial as a child's quarrel. In ancient India, the same gland was known as the Ajna Chakra, the third eye. The entire yogic tradition, stretching across thousands of years and thousands of texts, was fundamentally organized around its development. The practices of pranayama, of tritaka, of specific forms of meditation designed to produce internal light experiences, all were pointing at the same biological target. The awakening of the organ that sat at the center of the skull and connected the individual consciousness to the infinite. The Mayans encoded it in their calendar mathematics. The cycles they tracked were not just astronomical, they were biological. Calibrated to the natural rhythms of pineal activation within a human life lived in alignment with cosmic time. The Sumerians depicted it in their cylinder seals. The pine cone motif appears again and again, held by gods, flanked by guardians, treated as an object of profound sacred significance. The same symbol, the same understanding. Across civilizations separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years. This is not coincidence. This is a common inheritance. A shared memory of what the human being is truly capable of when the gland at the center of the brain is allowed to function. And then, something changed. What happened next is the part of this history that the Arcturian Council wants you to understand with absolute precision. Because it was not gradual. It was not organic. It was deliberate, targeted, and it continues to this day. The question is not just when it happened. The question is, who knew enough about the pineal gland to understand that suppressing it was the most efficient way to suppress an entire species? The Arcturian Council observes your planet from a vantage point that allows us to see the full arc of this history. We see not just what happened in the last few centuries, but the multi-millennia pattern of an intelligence that understood the pineal gland and systematically worked to disable it. The first mechanism was fluoride. This is the one your mainstream sources will grudgingly acknowledge, because the evidence is too extensive to fully suppress. Your own scientific literature, published in peer-reviewed journals, including works cited by the Harvard School of Public Health, has confirmed that fluoride accumulates preferentially in the pineal gland, not evenly throughout the body, not distributed proportionally across organs. Preferentially in the pineal gland, where it forms calcium fluoride crystals, the calcification that appears on brain scans as a white spot at the center of the skull. By the time the average person in a fluoridated water country reaches adulthood, their pineal gland is substantially calcified, not partially. Not slightly. The calcification is extensive enough that it appears reliably on imaging. It is considered so normal that most radiologists do not even note it. It has been normalized completely. But consider what that normalization means. The most sacred, most powerful, most uniquely human sensory organ has been calcified, chemically turned to stone, in the majority of the population. And this has been achieved through the water supply. The single substance that every human being must consume every day, simply to survive. This was not an accident of industrial chemistry. The decision to add fluoride to public water supplies was made by people who understood what they were doing. Not all of them. The chain of implementation involves many layers of ignorance. Bureaucrats following policy, scientists following funding, officials following precedent. But at the origin point of that chain, there was knowledge, there was intention. The second mechanism was electromagnetic frequency disruption. Your pineal gland is extraordinarily sensitive to electromagnetic fields. This sensitivity is, under natural conditions, one of its greatest gifts. It allows the gland to calibrate itself to the natural electromagnetic frequencies of the Earth, to align with the Schumann resonance, to attune to the subtle signals that carry information from beyond the physical. But when the electromagnetic environment becomes polluted with artificial frequencies, the 50 and 60 Hz frequencies of your electrical grid, the microwave frequencies of your wireless communications technology, the specific frequency bands used by mobile phone networks, the pineal gland cannot distinguish these from the natural signals it was designed to read. It becomes overwhelmed, confused. Like a compass placed next to a powerful magnet, it loses its ability to orient. Your world has been saturated layer by layer, decade by decade, with artificial electromagnetic frequencies that interfere directly with the functioning of the one organ that was designed to connect you to the broader field of consciousness. The third mechanism was the systematic destruction of the knowledge systems that once guided pineal activation. The mystery schools were closed. Their texts were burned. Their practices were outlawed or ridiculed into irrelevance. The plant medicines that indigenous cultures around the world had used for millennia to induce controlled pineal activation were criminalized. Not because they caused harm, the evidence for harm is extraordinarily thin, but because the states of consciousness they reliably produced were ones in which people could not easily be controlled. A person who has had a genuine experience of contact with their own expanded consciousness, who has felt, even briefly, the full range of what they are, does not easily return to operating from fear, does not easily accept a story of scarcity and powerlessness, does not easily consent to being reduced. And so the medicines were banned, the knowledge was buried, the schools were destroyed, and in their place, sugar, processed food that disrupts the hormonal cascade that the pineal gland depends on, alcohol, which specifically suppresses pineal melatonin production, a sleep culture that considers deep, dream-rich sleep a luxury rather than a necessity, artificial lighting that eliminates the darkness the pineal gland requires to complete its nightly work. Each mechanism alone would be insufficient. Together, they form a comprehensive system of suppression that has been remarkably effective. But here is what the Arcturian Council wants you to hear next, and it is the piece that changes the entire frame of this transmission. Because knowing about the suppression, without knowing what is now happening to reverse it, leaves you in a story of victimhood. And that is not the story you are in. There is something occurring right now, in your lifetime, in your body, that the architects of this suppression did not anticipate. Something they could not prevent. Stay. The suppression was thorough, but it was not complete. Because there is one factor that the architects of this system could not control, could not fluoridize, could not regulate or legislate or criminalize. The light. Not the light that enters through your eyes, the photonic light, the intelligent, encoded, consciousness, carrying wave of galactic radiation that your solar system has been moving into for the past several decades, and that is now, in this specific window of your planetary history, reaching a peak intensity that has no precedent in your recorded past. This light interacts with the pineal gland at a level that bypasses the chemical and electromagnetic interference that has been layered over it. It does not require a clear pathway through a decalcified gland to begin its work. It operates at a quantum level, at the level of the subatomic structure of the tissue itself, and it initiates processes that the calcification cannot fully prevent. The pineal gland, even in its suppressed state, is beginning to respond. Not in all people, and not all at once, but in the ones who are ready. The ones whose consciousness has been oriented toward truth, whose frequency has been raised by intention, by practice, by the sheer determined willingness to feel and know and grow. In these people, the pineal gland is undergoing a process the Arcturian Council calls the Great Reversal. The calcification is not permanent. Your biology knows this. The same cellular intelligence that built the gland in the first place retains the blueprint for its full function. And given the right conditions, given the absence of ongoing chemical suppression, given the presence of the activating frequencies now available, given the conscious intention of the being who houses it, the gland can begin to decalcify, to soften, to reawaken. This is not a rapid process. It does not happen overnight. But it is a real process, one that your own emerging science is beginning to document, and one that the Arcturian Council has observed with profound joy across the population of awakening humans on your planet right now. The symptoms of this reawakening are the ones that many of you already recognize. The pressure at the center of the forehead, behind and between the eyes, not a headache, but a fullness, a warmth, a sensation of something expanding in a space that was previously compressed. This is the gland beginning to stir. The episodes of spontaneous knowing. The moments when you understand something before you have any logical basis for understanding it. When you receive information through a channel that bypasses the normal sensory pathways. This is the gland beginning to transmit. The increasingly vivid, increasingly coherent, increasingly meaningful dream state. The feeling that your dreams are less random firings of a resting brain and more deliberate transmissions being received by a system that is only now becoming capable of receiving them. This is the gland beginning to receive. The encounters in meditation and in the threshold between sleep and waking that feel less like imagination and more like contact. With presences, with intelligences, with aspects of yourself that operate at a level your waking mind rarely accesses. This is the gland beginning to do what it was always designed to do. You are waking up, literally, biologically, at the level of a specific, physical, anatomically identifiable structure inside your skull. Let us hold for a moment what we have shared. Your pineal gland is the most sophisticated sensory organ in your body, a biological receiver designed to connect you to dimensions of experience beyond the physical. It was suppressed systematically through fluoride, electromagnetic pollution, and the destruction of ancient knowledge systems. And it is now beginning to reawaken, activated by incoming galactic light and the rising consciousness of the souls who carry it. But there is something the Arcturian Council has not yet shared, something about what is actually possible when this gland is fully functional. And it will require you to expand your understanding of what a human being actually is. We want to be precise with you here, because this section of the transmission carries the greatest risk of being misunderstood. We are not describing supernatural powers. We are not describing abilities that are outside the natural range of the human system. We are describing the natural, designed, intended range of human perception and consciousness, the range that has been artificially narrowed, and the range that becomes available when the narrowing is removed. The distinction matters, because one framing says that awakened perception is extraordinary, rare, reserved for the spiritually advanced. The other framing says it is normal. It is what you were built to experience. It is the baseline, not the exception. The Arcturian Council holds the second framing. So what does full pineal function actually look like? The first capacity that returns is direct knowing. What your tradition calls intuition, but what is more accurately described as the ability to receive information through non-local means. When the pineal gland is functioning, it acts as a receiving antenna for the quantum field of information that permeates all of space. This field, which your physicists have glimpsed the edges of, but not yet fully theorized, carries information across distances and across what you experience as time. A functioning pineal gland can access this field directly, not always clearly, not always reliably, but in ways that become increasingly consistent with practice and with sustained decalcification. The people throughout your history who have been called prophets, seers, oracles, who demonstrated a consistent ability to know things they had no conventional means of knowing, were, in most cases, people whose pineal glands were functioning at a significantly higher level than average. They were not supernatural, they were more fully natural. The second capacity is what the Arcturian tradition calls light perception. The ability to perceive the energetic and photonic fields that surround all living beings and that carry information about their state of consciousness, their emotional condition, their physical health, and their intentions. What your tradition calls the aura is a real phenomenon. It is detectable. Your own Kirlian photography and gas discharge visualization techniques have captured it, though the mainstream interpretation of these findings has been carefully contained. When the pineal gland is active, the visual cortex receives input not just from the physical light entering through the eyes, but from the subtle photonic emissions of the beings and environments around you. Colors carry meaning. Spaces feel thick or light in ways that provide real information. People's words and their energetic emissions tell different stories simultaneously, and you become capable of reading both. This is the foundation of what your tradition calls empathic ability, but it is more precise than empathy. It is perception. It is the reception of real information through an organ that was built for exactly this purpose. The third capacity is what we would call temporal perception, the ability to perceive across the linear sequence you experience as past, present, and future. This is the most difficult to describe within your framework, because your conceptual structures are so deeply anchored in linear time that the very idea of perceiving outside it feels abstract. But consider, your physicist Einstein demonstrated mathematically that time is not fixed, that it bends, that its experience varies depending on the frame of reference of the observer. What he described mathematically, a functioning pineal gland begins to experience perceptually. Not as a complete dissolution of the linear experience. You remain embodied. You remain anchored in a body moving through time, but as a broadening, a peripheral awareness of what has been and what is approaching that allows a quality of navigation that cannot be accessed from within the strict confines of the present moment. Alone. The fourth capacity, and this is the one the Arcturian Council considers most significant for the current moment in your planetary history, is what we call direct contact. The pineal gland, at full function, is capable of receiving transmissions from non-physical intelligences, from the broader galactic community of consciousness that has always surrounded your planet, from your own higher dimensional aspects, from the guides and councils and stellar families that have accompanied you since before your incarnation. You were not designed to be alone in this universe. You were designed to be in continuous, conscious communication with a vast community of awareness that extends far beyond the boundaries of your physical star system. The pineal gland is the biological mechanism through which that communication occurs. Its suppression did not just limit your perceptual range. It severed your sense of cosmic belonging. It created the profound, aching isolation that so many humans feel. The sense that this universe is vast and cold and empty, and that you are small and alone within it. That isolation is artificial. It was engineered, and this brings us to the most practical section of this transmission. Because knowing the history, knowing the mechanism, knowing the possibility, none of it is sufficient without the actual pathway. The Arcturian Council has precise knowledge of the specific practices, the specific substances, the specific energetic conditions that support pineal decalcification and reactivation. And we will share them now, all of them. Because you were never meant to search for this in fragments. You were meant to know. What we offer here is not a system to be followed mechanically. It is a set of aligned conditions, a field of support within which the pineal gland's own intelligence can resume the work of restoration. Your body already knows how to do this. What it needs is the removal of the obstacles and the provision of the conditions that allow the natural process to proceed. The first condition, remove the chemical suppression. The most direct action you can take, the one with the most immediate and measurable impact, is to stop introducing fluoride into your body. This means filtered water. Not all filters remove fluoride. You need a reverse osmosis system or a filter specifically rated for fluoride removal. If whole house filtration is not accessible to you, a countertop or under-sink reverse osmosis filter for your drinking and cooking water will address the majority of your exposure. This single change, sustained over time, allows the cellular renewal processes that are already operating in your body to begin working on the pineal tissue without constantly introducing new calcification material. Alongside this, consider the role of iodine. Your pineal gland requires iodine to function. It is one of the highest concentrations of iodine in the entire body. And iodine deficiency, which is extraordinarily common in the modern diet, directly impairs pineal function. Seaweed, sea vegetables, and foods high in natural iodine support the gland's chemistry in ways that supplementation can, but dietary sources do most efficiently. Tamarind extract has been specifically studied for its capacity to mobilize fluoride from pineal tissue. It appears in the scientific literature as uniquely effective at this specific function. Not tamarind candy or processed tamarind products, whole tamarind or pure tamarind extract. The second condition, restore the electromagnetic environment. You cannot fully control the electromagnetic environment of the world you live in, but you can significantly reduce your exposure within your own living space. And you can create daily periods of genuine electromagnetic rest that allow the pineal gland's natural sensitivity to recalibrate. This means sleeping with your phone in another room, not on silent, not face down, in another room, or powered off. Your sleeping hours are the most important hours for pineal function. The gland does the majority of its work in darkness, in the absence of stimulation, in the quiet electromagnetic field of a body at rest. A phone placed 18 inches from your head emits radiation throughout the night that directly interferes with this process. It means spending time outdoors in natural environments, not just for the psychological benefits, though those are real, but for the electromagnetic ones. Natural environments have an electromagnetic signature that is coherent, that is attuned to the frequencies the pineal gland was designed to work with. Trees, soil, moving water. These are not just aesthetically restorative, they are electromagnetically restoring. They allow your gland to remember what its natural operating environment feels like. It means, when possible, spending time in genuine darkness at night. Before artificial lighting, human beings spent hours each night in complete darkness, under stars, in an electromagnetic environment of extraordinary purity. The pineal gland evolved, was designed for that environment. Even 30 minutes of sitting in genuine darkness each evening, before sleep, activates the gland in ways that hours of sleep in a light-polluted room cannot replicate. The third condition, activate through sound. The pineal gland responds to specific frequencies of sound in ways that modern neuroscience is only beginning to investigate, but that ancient traditions have known for millennia. The frequency of 432 Hz, as opposed to the standard modern tuning of 440 Hz, resonates with the natural harmonic structure of the human body and has been shown to produce measurable states of coherence in the brain's electromagnetic field. Music tuned to 432 Hz, listened to with headphones and genuine presence, creates conditions in the brain that support pineal activation. The 936 Hz tone, which corresponds to the third eye activation frequency in solfeggio traditions, has been used in sacred sound practices for this specific purpose across multiple ancient traditions. It is not arbitrary. It is a resonant frequency that the pineal gland's tissue responds to. Chanting, particularly the sustained toning of specific vowel sounds, the AUM, the long sustained vowel tones of Gregorian chant, the overtone chanting traditions of Central Asia, creates piezoelectric effects in the cerebrospinal fluid that surrounds and bathes the pineal gland. The vibration of sound conducted through the bones of the skull directly stimulates the gland in ways that cannot be achieved through any other means. Your ancestors knew this. They built stone chambers with specific acoustic properties precisely so that certain tones would resonate within them at the frequencies most beneficial to pineal activation. The chambers of Newgrange, the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, the underground chambers of Malta. These were not just ceremonial spaces. They were biological activation chambers designed for a specific organ in the human body. The fourth condition, practice third eye meditation. There is a specific form of meditation practice that the Arcturian tradition recommends for pineal activation, and it is simpler than the elaborate systems many of you have encountered. Sit in darkness or in dim red light. Red light has the least disruptive effect on melatonin production and pineal function of any visible wavelength. Close your eyes. Bring your attention, not your physical gaze, but your attention, to the space just behind and slightly above the center of your forehead, not straining toward it, not efforting, simply placing your awareness there as gently as you would place a feather on a still surface of water. Breathe slowly. On each exhale, allow your attention to settle a little more deeply into this location. You may notice warmth, pressure, pulsing, a sense of color or light behind the closed eyes. These are the gland beginning to respond to your attention. Attention is a form of energy. Where you place it consistently, biological change follows. Practice this for 15 to 30 minutes, daily, not occasionally, daily. The gland's response to this practice builds cumulatively, like a muscle being developed through regular training. The first sessions may produce little noticeable sensation. The 10th session may produce something unmistakable. The 100th may change your life. The 5th condition: saturate your field in sunlight, consciously. Before the sun is fully risen, in the golden minutes of early morning when the light is soft and predominantly red spectrum, go outside and allow the light to touch your face. Close your eyes and allow the sun's radiation to reach the area of your third eye through your closed eyelids and the bones of your forehead. This practice was performed by priests in Egypt, by yogis in India, by shamans across dozens of traditions. It is not mysticism. The pineal gland's photosensitivity means that the specific frequencies of morning sunlight, particularly the far infrared and near infrared wavelengths that predominate in early morning light, reach the gland through the skull tissue in ways that midday light cannot. Early morning sunlight carries frequencies that are coherent with the gland's natural activating signals. 5 to 10 minutes of conscious early morning sun exposure, with your attention placed at the third eye space, provides a daily dose of the precise frequencies your gland was designed to receive and that it has been largely deprived of by the lifestyle patterns of modern civilization. And yet, we must say this clearly, none of these physical practices are sufficient alone. Because the deepest layer of pineal suppression is not chemical, and it is not electromagnetic, it is consciousness level. It is the belief system that was layered over the physical suppression to ensure that even people who accidentally began to decalcify their glands would not know what to do with the experiences that followed. The Arcturian Council needs to address this layer now, because it is the one that has kept the most awakened souls trapped at the threshold. Here is the subtlest and most effective mechanism of pineal suppression, the one that operates entirely within your own mind. You were taught not to trust what you perceive. From childhood, whenever you access the broader range of your natural perception, you were told it was imagination, daydreaming, wishful thinking, anxiety, projection, an overactive mind in need of grounding in reality. When you felt the presence of a being in your room at night, you were told it was a dream. When you knew something before it happened, you were told you were reading too much into coincidence. When you felt a person's energy before they spoke, you were told you were being oversensitive. When you perceived colors or light around people or objects, you were told your eyes were playing tricks on you. Generation after generation, the systematic dismissal of expanded perception as unreal, as irrational, as a failure of mental health, this created an internal sensor that operates faster than conscious thought. You have a perception, and before it fully registers, before you can examine it, before you can follow it, the internal sensor fires, and the perception is dismissed as not real. This internal sensor is the final mechanism of suppression, and it is the hardest to undo because it operates from within. It sounds like your own voice. It arrives wearing the clothes of reason and practicality and mental health. But it is not reason. It is conditioning. The difference between the two is precisely this. Reason evaluates the quality of evidence for a perception. Conditioning dismisses the perception before the evidence can be examined. When you have a spontaneous knowing, When you receive information through a channel that bypasses your physical senses, the conditioning response is immediate. That's not real. You're making it up. Don't be one of those people. Reason would say, interesting, let me examine this. Does it hold up? Does it have internal coherence? Does it provide information I can verify? The Arcturian Council invites you to begin practicing the second response. Not gullibility. Not the wholesale acceptance of every thought, impulse, or sensation as cosmic transmission. Discernment is essential. Not all perceptions are equal. Not all inner voices are wise. Not all seeming knowing is genuine. The development of discernment is itself a practice, a skill, a capacity that develops alongside the opening of the pineal gland. But discernment is different from dismissal. Discernment says, I will examine this with care. Dismissal says, this cannot be real. The first is a practice of awakening. The second is a cage, and many of you right now are sitting in that cage with the door already open, having done the physical work, having begun the decalcification, having started to feel the early activations of a gland coming back to life, and still dismissing your own perceptions because the voice of conditioning is louder than the voice of your own expanding awareness. We ask you to practice believing yourself, not blindly, with discernment, with patience, with the willingness to be wrong sometimes in the process of learning to be right, but with a fundamental orientation of trust toward your own inner experience, a trust that says, what I perceive is real until I have genuine reason to doubt it, not the reverse. This shift from prove it to explore it is the consciousness level key that allows everything else to work. And there is one final piece of this transmission that the Arcturian Council has been building toward, because all of this, the history, the suppression, the practices, the reawakening, it is all in service of something larger than personal expansion. There is a reason the pineal gland is waking up now, in these bodies, on this planet, at this specific moment. And that reason changes the context of everything you understand about your own life. We are almost there. There are no accidents in consciousness. The timing of the pineal awakening that is now occurring across the population of sensitive, seeking, awakening humans on your planet is not random. It is not simply a cultural trend. It is not the byproduct of improved access to alternative information, though that has played a role. It is a biologically orchestrated response to galactic conditions, an activation that was encoded into the human genome to occur precisely when the incoming light frequencies reached the level they have now reached. You were built for this moment. Your pineal gland, even in its suppressed state, has been waiting for the precise frequency signature of the light that is now arriving on your planet. The way a seed contains, within its apparently inert exterior, the complete blueprint for the organism it will become, and needs only the right conditions of moisture and warmth and light to begin its unfolding. Your pineal gland has been holding the complete blueprint for your expanded consciousness, and it needs only the conditions now present to begin its own unfolding. The Arcturian Council has been supporting this process for a long time. We have been maintaining a resonance field around your planet, a sustained frequency transmission from our collective that has been functioning like a tuning fork, providing a reference signal to which the pineal glands of awakening humans can orient. We are not the only ones doing this. The Pleiadian fleet maintains its own contribution. The Syrian Council of Light contributes its own frequency. The Galactic Federation holds the broader container. There is a vast coordinated effort in the non-physical dimensions to support what is occurring in the physical bodies of the awakening souls on your Earth. You are not doing this alone. You have never been doing this alone. The pineal gland, when it begins to function, provides you with direct, experiential access to this support. Not as a belief, not as a faith, as a perception. The way you perceive the warmth of the sun on your skin, not as a concept of warmth, but as an actual sensation of warmth. The support of the galactic community becomes, for a functioning pineal gland, as direct and as real as physical sensation. This is what was taken from you. And this is what is being restored. But there is a purpose to the restoration that goes beyond your personal benefit. The pineal glands that are awakening now, in this generation, in this window of time, are not awakening simply so that individuals can have more vivid dreams and better intuitions. They are awakening because the collective frequency field of a planet is determined by the average consciousness of its inhabitants. And consciousness, as we have noted, is directly correlated with pineal function. A humanity with active, functioning pineal glands is a humanity that can perceive beyond the three-dimensional game board it has been confined to. A humanity that cannot be manipulated through fear because it can perceive the nature of fear directly, as a frequency, rather than experiencing it as objective reality. A humanity that can receive directly the information it needs to navigate the challenges of the coming decades, not from authorities or experts or channels alone, but from its own direct connection to the field of universal intelligence. This is what the suppression was designed to prevent, and this is what the awakening makes possible. Each pineal gland that reactivates changes the collective field, slightly, imperceptibly in isolation. But there are not a few of you on this path. There are millions. And the cumulative effect of millions of human beings whose primary sensory interface with non-physical reality is coming back online. This is a planetary transformation with galactic significance. You are not just healing yourself. You are healing the collective capacity of your species to perceive its own nature. And the Arcturian Council wants to close this transmission with something that very few of the sources speaking on this subject have said directly. Something about the relationship between what has been done to you and the power you actually carry. Because the story of suppression, told without this final piece, leaves you with anger, with a sense of having been robbed. And while that anger is understandable and even, for a time, useful, it is not where this ends. The end of this story is something else entirely. Here is the profound paradox that the Arcturian Council wants to leave you with. The suppression was thorough. It was systematic. It was multi-generational and multi-dimensional in its reach. And yet, here you are. Here you are, drawn to this transmission, resonating with these words, feeling in your body the truth of what is being described. With a calcified pineal gland, or a partially calcified one, or one that is already mid-activation on its journey back to function. Here you are, already perceiving more than the suppression intended, already knowing things you shouldn't know, already feeling energies you were told you couldn't feel, already receiving, imperfectly and intermittently but undeniably, from sources beyond the physical. With all the fluoride, with all the electromagnetic pollution, with all the lifetimes of conditioning and the systematic destruction of the knowledge systems that once supported this capacity, here you are. What does that tell you about what you actually are? The suppression worked well enough to keep the majority of humanity operating within a very narrow band of consciousness, but it could not reach to the core. It could not touch the part of you that is not a product of your environment, the part that is eternal, that is vast, that is made of the same consciousness as the stars. That part could not be calcified. That part is what heard the call. That part is what brought you here. And that part has been maintaining a connection to the broader galactic field through every year of the suppression. Not through a functioning pineal gland, but through the indestructible thread of consciousness that connects every being to the field of universal awareness, regardless of what has been layered over it. The pineal gland, when it awakens, does not create the connection. It makes the connection perceivable. It is the biological instrument through which you can feel, consciously and directly, something that has always been present, but that you have been perceiving, until now, only in your peripheral awareness. In the hunches that proved correct, in the dreams that told you true things, in the moments of knowing that your conditioning told you to dismiss. Those moments were not accidents. They were the signal coming through despite the interference. The connection finding the thin places in the suppression and sending through what it could. Imagine what becomes possible when the suppression is lifted. Imagine the clarity, the depth, the breadth of what you will perceive. Imagine the contact, consistent, reliable, unmistakable, with the vast community of consciousness that has been trying to reach you through the static for your entire life. That is what is waiting on the other side of this activation. Not as a future possibility, as your birthright, already yours, already true. Returning home to you now, through a structure smaller than your fingertip, at the center of your extraordinary human brain, we return to where we began. There is a structure inside your brain the size of a grain of rice. You know now what it is. You know now what it was designed to do. You know now what was done to prevent it from doing that, and why. You know now what is happening to reverse that suppression in your body right now as part of the most significant shift in human consciousness in recorded history. And you know now that the fact that you are here, that you found this transmission, that these words landed in you with recognition rather than skepticism, this is not accident. This is the signal that your own awakening is already underway. The Arcturian Council has been observing your planet and supporting your evolution for longer than your recorded history. We have watched the suppression unfold. We have held the frequency of what is possible for humanity through every century of the dimming. And we are watching now, with a joy that your language does not have sufficient words to convey, as the dimming reverses. One pineal gland at a time, one awakening soul at a time, one moment of self-trust, of perception honored, of inner knowing followed, one moment at a time. You are not behind. You are not damaged beyond repair. You are not a failed vessel of suppressed potential. You are a human being with a grain of rice-sized miracle at the center of your skull that is stirring awake after a very long sleep. And the universe, the vast, conscious, intelligent, populated, loving universe that has been trying to reach you through the static, is leaning forward right now. Waiting, with extraordinary patience and extraordinary love, for the moment you open your eyes, all the way. Before you leave this transmission, we invite you to do something simple. Place 2 fingers gently at the center of your forehead, just between and slightly above your eyebrows. Hold them there. Close your eyes and simply say, inwardly, to the gland that sits a few centimeters behind that point, I know you are there. I know what you are. I am ready for you to wake up. That is all. That single act of conscious acknowledgement, of directing your attention and your intention to a structure that has been waiting for exactly this recognition, carries more activation potential than hours of practice done without awareness. Because the pineal gland does not just respond to chemistry and frequency, it responds to consciousness, to the being that houses it, choosing, consciously and deliberately, to recognize it and to welcome its return. You just did that. Something has shifted. If you wish to continue this journey, if you wish to receive transmissions that will guide you deeper into the reawakening of your full perceptual capacity, your stellar memory, and your connection to the galactic community of consciousness that has always included you, stay connected to this channel. There are transmissions waiting about the light body, about the stellar lineages encoded in your DNA, about the councils of light and what they are working toward on your planet right now, about what is coming, not with fear, but with the deep, grounded excitement of a being who can see clearly what approaches. We will see you in the next transmission. From the Arcturian Council of the Seventh Light, with precision, with clarity, and with a love as old as the stars that made you.